Are they in GM core? They are. Let me find them. Because the level 0 rules are rad. Level 0 characters. Before they were heroes, every PC came from somewhere, whether they worked on a farm like Valeros or picked pockets on the streets like Sela. Sometimes it can be a lot of fun to play a prequel game set years before the PC's first adventure as heroes, or you may have an idea for a low-powered adventure that calls for commoners and apprentices. This is sort of what I'm talking about, is I want to run Pathfinder where survival and making ends meet is part of the difficulty. Everyone wants to do this. You know, it doesn't matter what system you're playing, everybody has that idea of, ooh, I want to run a campaign where every meal is a struggle. Just making it to the next sunrise is a struggle, and they're trying to survive. Also, I just realized after looking at this picture for 5 years, that's Valeros. He has the mark on his face, chat. That's Valeros. Building a level 0 character is similar to building a first level character, but you stop after choosing ancestry and background. A level 0 character still gets the 4 free attribute boosts from step 6 of the normal character creation process, but not the class attribute boost, which already means at level 0, your highest possible ability modifier will be a +3. You cannot reach +4. A level 0 character is trained in perception, trained in all saving throws, unarmed attacks, unarmed defense, and one weapon, simple weapon, of their choice. I already love this. You're not useless. You know, nobody in Pathfinder is useless. You can't be less than trained in any of the 4 primary survivals, which are perception and the 3 saving throws. And then unarmored defense and unarmed attacks are obviously always useful. I love that you get one simple weapon. You know, you'll probably pick this based on your career. Were you a chef? Cool. Maybe you're trained in knives, like a dagger. And if you were like a squire, maybe you're trained in a longsword. Additionally, actually that's martial, so no. But additionally, they are trained in a number of skills equal to 2 plus their intelligence modifier. The proficiency bonus for a level 0 character works the same way as normal, but since the level is 0, the total proficiency bonus for being trained is +2. So like if you're trained in perception with a +3 wisdom mod, the highest you can have right now is +5. The highest bonus you can have at level 0 is +5, and that's in your best skill, which I think is so cool. Hit points. At level 0, a character adds their constitution modifier to their ancestry, and that's it. You have so little hit points. If you've ever played Pathfinder and thought you almost missed that sudden death feeling of level 1 D&D 5e, this is how you get it. You know, if you're playing a 6 hit point goblin with a +1 constitution, you've only got 7 hit points. That can go down in 1 hit easy. Like, if you want Pathfinder to feel like, oh, you can die from 1 misplaced arrow or 1 misplaced short sword, this is a great variant rule to start a campaign that way. Bring out the level -1 creatures. Even they can hit shockingly hard. Let me find a level -1 creature. You know what? Why am I looking on Nephis? Let's do this classic. If you have 7 hit points, this thing hits for 1d4. On a crit, this can kill you. On a critical hit, you can go down from just an animated broom. But what you'll find playing with level -1 creatures is how fun they are. They've got really unique mechanics. A creature hit by an animated broom's bristles must succeed at a DC 15 fortitude save or spend its next action coughing. It's literally it's a 1-action stun. It's a 1-action stun. It probably needs a 20 to crit. Not against a level 0. Let's assume you're playing someone who doesn't max their dexterity. Let's say you only have a +2 to dexterity on your character at level 0. You're proficient in unarmored, but that's only a +2 at level 0. Your armor class is only 14, which means this thing crits you on an 18, 19, and 20. It's so cool. This level -1 creature is really dangerous. It hits you on an 8. It crits you on an 18. Starting money, you still get 5 GP. You still get 5 GP, which is actually a solid amount to buy some decent starting gear if you buy simple stuff. But where level 0 gets interesting is your apprentice option. This is where the entire variant rule really comes together for me. If the story you want to tell is about characters who have started training to become a particular class, you can grant them a small number of abilities. An apprentice character is trained in the skill or skills specified for their chosen class, such as occultism and performance for a bard. In addition to the skills they gain through their initial proficiencies, they also gain benefits based on the class. Alchemists gain level 1 advanced alchemy and 1 batch of reagents each day. Monks gain powerful fists, so they have 1d6 instead of 1d4. An apprentice of another martial class is trained in light armor, all simple weapons, and 1 martial weapon listed in the class's initial proficiencies. If the martial class listed here lacks light armor or martial weapon training, give it a different ability as well. This is cool. Are there any other martial classes that don't have light armor or martial weapon training? I think every single martial class besides monk is trained in light armor. Are there any martial classes that are not trained in martial weapons? Rogues still get short bows and long bows. I think everyone else has martial weapons. Oh, did they not update this? Hold on. You have 1 batch of infused reagents. Do infused reagents exist anymore? They didn't update it. Now it's just your intelligent modifier. Yeah, they have versatile vials. They don't have reagents. That's a good point out, Phil. Holy. Yeah, so I guess if I were to change this, I would just change this to... Yeah, because advanced alchemy doesn't have a level anymore, I don't think. Yeah, so I'd say I'd replace this entire sentence with they can make a number of infused alchemical items equal to their intelligence modifier, and the items must be level 1 or lower. I don't think there's any level 0 alchemical items, but I guess it's future-proofing. Spellcasters, super simple. You become trained in your appropriate magic tradition. If you're a druid, it's primal. If you're a bard, it's occult, whatever, wizard, arcane. And you just gain 2 cantrips. A prepared caster cannot change these cantrips. So basically every spellcaster plays the same at level 0, which is a great way to introduce new players to spellcasting, by the way. Like, it's a decent rule for introducing a new player. The only downside is that it is very lethal. In that if you are introducing someone to Pathfinder at level 0, they will have far less to get confused by, but they will also die in 1 hit. Does Magus count as a spellcaster? I believe it is considered a spellcasting class. Magus are spellcasters because they get their feat at level 2. Magi do not get a feat at level 1. They are a spellcasting class. Gameplay. Gameplay can be especially dangerous for level 0 characters. For safety's sake, you might treat the characters as level -1 when determining what combat encounters are appropriate. This is great advice, and this is something that Paizo's always gone above and beyond. They make sure you understand how encounter building works. For as a reminder, there's the tables where every monster is worth a certain amount of XP, not based on its direct level, but based on its level difference from the party. For example, a party of 4 player characters, a medium encounter is 2 enemies of the same level. So for 4 level 0 characters, what they're saying is 2 level -1 enemies, like that Kobold Scout, is a good challenge. Or, like, 4 of the weak Kobold enemies that we just looked at. Granted, you still have to use a little bit of knowledge. Like they said, if you didn't think about that sneak attack bonus damage doesn't get reduced by the weak template. So if you send 8 of them and they're all getting sneak attack, your players are dead. For skill checks, they can still accomplish tasks with a simple trained DC using their trained skills, but success is less certain. Since they have fewer skills, the party might not have anyone trained for a given task. If you're playing these characters for more than a few sessions, consider advancing them to first level using the fast advancement speed. If you actually use experience, which I've never used experience in Pathfinder. I use it to balance encounters. I've never used it in character. If your group wants a longer experience at level 0, start the group without the apprentice benefits, then level up to apprentice, then level 1. That's so cool. Wait, I love that. Where you are literally just civilians. At level 1, everybody is level 0, everyone's mostly the same. The big difference is your chosen weapon. That's your big difference, is your one chosen weapon. And your, and your ancestry feat's gonna be so much more prevalent, because that's like your only feat. And your background skill feat is like your only skill feat. Wait, that's sick. I never even thought of that. A lot of people will play the game and be like, well, you know, I don't use my ancestry feat that often. You know, now your gnome who took an extra cantrip from their Fey-touched magic, that's suddenly amazing. That's suddenly sick as hell. Oh, what kind of treasure? As the characters start with 5 GP, their adventures up to first level should account for the rest of the first level characters' starting money. This means you'll distribute treasure worth 10 gold times the number of PCs, a large percentage of which should be in currency. That'd be such a fun way to end the level 0, is like finally reaching a big town. I think that would be a great level 0 adventure, is just your journey from your tiny small town to a big city like Absalom. Cool stuff, cool stuff. I'll be real. I have not looked at proficiency without level since the game came out. I've dogged on it for 4 years. I just did earlier. It's I guess because it fights the core of the system. I want to reread it right now with you. It turns PF2 into 5e, but it doesn't. It changes the math to be much more 5e. It changes it to bounded accuracy. This variant removes a character's level from their proficiency bonus, scaling it differently for a style of game that's outside the norm. This is a significant change to the system. The proficiency rank progression in player core is designed for heroic fantasy games, where heroes rise from humble origins to world-shattering strength. For some games, this narrative arc doesn't fit. Such games are about hedging bets in an uncertain and gritty world in which even the world's best fighter can't guarantee a win against a large group of moderately skilled bandits. The initial implementation is fairly straightforward. The proficiency bonus just becomes +2 for trained, +4 for expert, +6 for master, and +8 for legendary. It's best to give untrained characters a -2 instead of a +0. I guess that's fair. You want the difference from trained and not. It mimics D&D proficiency in that way. Where, you know, if you're trained in a skill in D&D, you get to add your +2 from proficiency, and that proficiency gets higher and higher with level. Whereas Pathfinder proficiency scales a bit faster? Slower? I don't know. I'm curious, actually, why they involve the -2. Is it to give people more agency over what they can and can't do? Oh, probably because there's no inherent penalty in this game. This is because without that -2, a wizard can still use a great axe decently fine, even if they're not trained in it. And normally, because you don't get to add your level, you still would never do that. But in proficiency without level, if you don't add that -2, it's only a difference of +2. So your wizard can still use that great axe. And, you know, why would you ever use a 1d4 dagger at +2 when you could use a great axe 1d12 at +0? So this makes it so that people are even less, they're not incentivized to use things they're not trained in. Additionally, for creatures, hazards, magic items, and so on, reduce each statistic that would include a proficiency bonus by the level of the creature or other rules element. So if it's a magic item that gives +10, or a magic item with a DC 18, and it's a level 3 magic item, you just make it a DC 15. These statistics are typically modifiers and DCs for attacks, ACs, saving throws, perception, skills, and spells. Finally, decrease the skill DC of most tasks. You can just subtract the level from the DC tables on page 53, or you can refer to the simple skill DCs table for a set of DCs that's easier to remember. Combat outcomes will tend to flatten out, with critical successes and failures being less likely across the game. This is particularly notable in spells, where you're less likely to see the extreme effects of critical failures on saves. I think this is a big problem with proficiency without level. In Pathfinder 2e, spells are built on variance. They are built to be wildly different based on what happens. If you are only using the success and failure effects of spells with the critical effects almost never happening, you're missing out on a lot of the game as a spellcaster. So simple DCs are 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. A DC 30 without level? What do you have? +5 from your ability score, +8 from legendary, that's +13? I guess a 17 on the die to accomplish something legendary. I guess that makes sense. You know, legendary is like using the World Forge and not dying. That makes sense. Adjusting encounters. Telling stories where a large group of low-level monsters can still be a significant threat to a high-level PC requires some significant shifts. In encounter building, including shifts in the PC's rewards. Under the default math, 2 monsters of a certain level are roughly as challenging as a single monster 2 levels higher. However, with level removed from proficiency, this assumption is no longer true. I'm gonna sneeze. The XP budget for creatures using a different scale as shown in the creature XP table. You'll still use the same XP budget for a given threat level as shown on the encounter budget table on page 75. So you use the same XP budget, but a different XP scale. Oh, because the increase in level is so much less noticeable. So yeah, I'm curious about this. Let me look at some monsters real quick. Let's load up our monster core here. So if we subtract their level from things, the animated statue versus the giant animated statue, how different are they? This attack becomes +8. This attack becomes +12. Okay, so it's still notably higher. It's still way higher when you subtract their level. The damage is also much higher. Armor class is 19 versus 16. Okay. Interesting. Their perception is the same. Perception is both 6, whether it's a giant or not. What about saving throws? Saving throw is 9, 2, 2 versus 10, 3, 2. Interesting. Ancrov versus Hive Mother. Attack is a plus 10 versus attack is a plus 12. So they do scale pretty well. Acid Spit is plus 7. Acid Spit is plus 9. Okay. Okay, this is more balanced than I expected it to be. The scaling is still there, and I appreciate that. I'm already more impressed by the balance of creatures than I'd never done like my due diligence. So that's why they're not worth that much more experience. Because at the end of the day, the damage is a lot higher. That's what matters. But the chance of you getting hit is only like 5 or 10% more. You know, if you're fighting something with level plus 5 instead of normal level, yeah, the damage is like doubled, which is part of why the experience is so much higher. But the chance to hit, only like 10% higher. Now go look at level 12, because level 12 is where 5e starts to break down. Interesting. Low-key thought that was Calliope for a second. Not gonna lie. Low-key thought this was Calliope just for the hottest moment. Okay, a Banshee. Let's compare a Banshee to a Barghest. Banshees and Barghests. My favorite TTRPG. So a Barghest at level 4, plus 13 to hit, so with proficiency without level, plus 9 to hit, plus 9 to hit, spell DC of 17. Versus the Banshee, which is a plus 15 to hit after reduction of level. So that's way more accurate at high levels. Spell DC, I'm actually shocked it can't cast spells. I thought Banshees were spellcasters. It still has a DC of 21 compared to a DC of 17. Still way higher. Hit points are 250 compared to 50. I'd say, as far as just raw DC numbers go, it's pretty well balanced without level. I'll have to give them that. While the XP values in the creature XP table work well in most cases, sometimes they might not account for the effects or creature abilities when facing a party of a drastically different level. For instance, a Ghost Mage could prove too much for 5th rank level PCs with its incorporeality, flight, and high rank spells, even though it's outnumbered. Yes, I love that they give warnings. I love that they give warnings like this. That's so cool. You know, that's what Paizo's great about that. Of like, hey, even though the math is tight, it's not all encompassing. Read the monster. Items on standard creatures are chosen to avoid giving out too much treasure for the level at which PCs will typically fight them. However, using this variant, PCs might defeat a creature 5 levels higher than they are, or even more. Too many encounters with higher level foes can wind up giving the PCs more treasure than you expected, or vice versa, if they're fighting weaker foes that put up more of a fight, but still have poor treasure. You can make periodic adjustments if the PC's treasure drifts too far from expectations. Making it so they can't easily sell or buy magic items will mean it's harder for them to exploit the treasure they gain. I do think it works best with automatic bonus progression. I do think if you're going to use proficiency without level, automatic bonus progression is way, way better. I'm gonna say it. Pathfinder as a whole is better with automatic bonus progression. Thoughts? Opinions? Gunfire? Does anyone here not know what I'm talking about? Because automatic bonus progression is sexy. Automatic bonus progression is fantastic. I almost thought about using it in my games with May and everybody, but we had new players and I didn't want to confuse them by saying, this is how the rules work, but we're changing them. Throughout Pathfinder, you are expected to find, just like sort of like D&D, you're expected to find +1 weapons. You're expected to find runes that increase your weapon damage. You're expected to upgrade your saving throws with resilience runes and armor potency. You are expected to gain magic items. However, automatic bonus progression, instead of relying on, okay, you use a longsword, here, have a +1 longsword. Now, when you reach a certain level, all weapons you wield just function as +1 weapons. This variant removes the item bonus to rolls and DCs usually provided by magic items and replaces it with a new kind of bonus, potency, to reflect a character's innate ability. In this variant, magic items, if they exist at all, can provide unique special abilities rather than numerical increases. You no longer have to rely on, here is your +1 weapon, okay, now here is your striking weapon, okay, now here is your +1 armor. Now, when you reach a certain level, you just get that. Not because you found a better sword, but because you're better at using weapons. You are more experienced as a combatant. And I think that's sick. It also gives the GM way more freedom to say, hey, here's a sword that does fire damage. Hey, here's a sword that lets you shoot a laser beam. You can give magic items as they, quote unquote, should be, in my opinion, where they have special effects not just a mechanical bonus. You know what I'm saying? It encourages freedom in flavor and flexibility. Exactly. Like someone said earlier, ABP works really, really well for characters who want to be like, you know, a multi-weapon user. It's really cumbersome to be a fighter and spend all your money on, okay, here's my +2 longsword, my +2 great axe, my +1 flaming shortbow. That's kind of annoying. Like, you're just spending money to keep up. Whereas now, you can be a fighter who has your longsword that can extend to give me reach. My great axe that when I hit somebody, it echoes the attack onto a nearby opponent. My short bow that allows me to shoot 3 times at once because my GM loves me and I bought him pizza. Something like that, you know? You get unique items instead of the same items. How many Pathfinder campaigns have you played where you hit level 2 and your GM says, here's your +1 weapon? And then you hit level 3 and they go, oh, you found a +1 striking guiarm. What a coincidence. Every character automatically gains the class features on the automatic bonus progressions table. Starting at 2nd level, you gain a +1 potency bonus to attack rolls with all weapons and unarmed attacks. This increases to +2 at 10th level and +3 at 16th level, just automatically. Your GM doesn't have to give you a +1 weapon, you just get this. Skill potency. This is one that I love. This is what I love because you rarely get this as part of like a normal Pathfinder campaign. At 3rd level, choose a single skill. You gain a permanent +1 potency bonus with that skill. At 6th level, choose a 2nd skill to get +1. At 9th level, choose one of those skills and increase it to +2. At 13th, the 2nd skill becomes a +2, and a 3rd skill gets a +1. Basically, every 3 levels, you are getting better at various skills. I love this because this isn't even in baseline PF2. This isn't even expected. This lets you feel really, really cool with specific skills. I love this. You can specialize beyond your proficiency. You can stack it on top of your proficiency to be insane with like 2 skills, or you can spread it out so you're expert with some skills but you're potent with others and it all keeps on the same level. I love the additional character diversity you get with skill potency. A lot of magic items give those kinds of skill bonuses, yeah, but keeping track of those is kind of annoying in my opinion, and they don't scale as well. At least from my experience. You know, I have a cloak of whatever that gives me +1 to diplomacy, but a lot of those magic items are also only for specific roles. You know, I think the mask doesn't, like the whatever fearsome mask, of fierce deity's mask or whatever, I think it gives you +1 to intimidation specifically to demoralize. And even if that's what intimidation is used for 75% of the time, it doesn't feel as good as saying +1 to intimidation. I think one of my biggest complaints with Pathfinder, and this is something I will give people, they usually exaggerate it to the point where they make it sound like a big deal. It's a much smaller deal than they make it out to be. A lot of bonuses in Pathfinder can feel incredibly niche. This is something where beauty and simplicity. I would much rather +1 to diplomacy. Is it more powerful? Exponentially. But it's also way more fun and way easier to keep track of. You don't have to say, does this situation qualify for my +1 bonus? You just get to say, I have +1 to diplomacy. Devastating attacks. At 4th level, your weapon and unarmed strikes deal 2 damage instead of 1. This is striking. At level 4, you get free striking. At level 12, greater. At level 19, major. Defense potency. Same thing, but for armor class. 5th level, +1 to AC. 11th level, +2 to AC. 18th level, +3 to AC. Simple as that. It keeps you on par with the enemies you're supposed to be fighting without meaninglessly giving you, here's your +1 blackmail. Perception potency, +1 to perception at level 7, 13, and 19. Saving throw potency, +1 to all saving throws at levels 8, 14, and 20. Phenomenal. And they even include Apex items, which nobody's ever gotten high enough level to use an Apex item. But at 17th level, choose 1 attribute score. This wasn't updated either. Paizo. This should say increase by 1 or increase 2 + 4. Paizo! What are you doing? It's fine. Adjusting items and treasure. Here's the important bit. With this variant, you can ignore as much of the party treasure by level table on page 59 as you want, though you'll usually want to provide consistent currency. The main area your choice will impact is in spellcasting items such as scrolls and wands. Remove all potency runes, striking runes, and resilient runes. Items that normally grant an item bonus to stats or damage dice no longer do. The only thing this I don't feel works well with is the alchemist. The Alchemist does have some weird stuff, like where now a lot of their alchemical items aren't as useful, because alchemical items are item bonuses. That's a little bit awkward. Other than the base item a bonus to AC from armor, so like if your plate mail gives you +5 AC, that's still an item bonus, you still get that. Apex items do not increase attribute modifiers. If your world still includes magic items, a safe bet is to continue to give out consumable items at roughly the rate on page 59. If you choose to eliminate runes entirely, this can reduce the PC's damage since they won't have runes like Flaming or Holy. If you've removed nearly all treasure, why would you do that? Challenges might become more difficult even with automatic bonuses. I love ABP. I think once you know how Pathfinder works as a whole, ABP is phenomenal. I think it is the optimal way to play because you can give much more unique items. Free archetype is for more experienced players? Disagree. Heavy disagree. Free archetype is very simple, very easy to explain, especially because it comes in at level 2. It doesn't change character creation at all. You don't need to talk about free archetype until like your 3rd or 4th session. So they already understand the basics of the game. They've played for 12 hours at that point. No, free archetype is super simple. You just tell them, hey, we're using an extra rule called free archetype. Don't worry about it right now. When you hit level 2, I will explain it to you. It's a lot of extra stuff for new players to absorb. That's why you don't explain it until level 2. Because it doesn't do anything until level 2. There's no reason to explain it until level 2. You make sure they understand the basics of the game, and then you talk about it. And then you help them go shopping. Yeah, no, we're using a free archetype in our campaign. What's Blissey playing? Blissey's free archetype was... might have been Dragon Disciple? I can't remember. It's sick as fuck, though. Yeah, it's literally just +1 feat from a specific thing. Yeah, dual class is not for new players. I'll tell you that one. Dual class is insanely complex. I use free archetype and Ancestry Paragon in my Kingmaker game. I've heard a lot of good things about Ancestry Paragon. I should try Ancestry Paragon sometime. People always talk about how great it is. It's actually not in GM Core.